Good morning, class. Happy Friday. I hope everyone's looking forward to the weekend. As you remember from last class, getting into the music realm, we had talked about the Spanish culture and what all goes into that. We talked a little bit about Spanish music, but today we're going to dive in a little bit more and we're going to talk about the Spanish March. We're going to talk about the composer today, one of his famous works, and the general style of what goes into these. The composer we'll be talking about today is Jaume Texidor. He was born April 16th, 1884 in Barcelona, and he passed away February 23rd of 1957. He was a Spanish musician, conductor, publisher, and composer. He was also a performing saxophonist. He has over 500 musical compositions, but he is best known for his Spanish march Amparita Roca. A little bit about Amparita Roca. It was composed in 1925. It was named after one of Texidor's piano students, and it is one of the best-known Spanish compositions worldwide, and it is a pasodoble. Pasodobles, otherwise known as double steps, are a Spanish military march. They are a modern dance, and they resemble the movements of a bullfight, and it oftentimes involves a lot of role play, where the man will portray the bull and the female dancer will portray the cape that the matador uses, or in other cases, the male dancer will be the matador and the female is portraying the bull. And it is usually in a duple meter, meaning that there are 2 beats per measure. A little bit about the march style. It is usually in duple meter, like we just discussed, whether it's 4/4, 2/2, 2/4, or even 6/8. But in the case of Amparita Roca that we'll be looking at, we will be in 2/4. And it usually changes key once, either from major to the subdominant or the 4th scale degree, or from minor to its relative major, or from minor to its parallel major. The key usually changes in the section that we call the trio, and there are usually 3 sections to a march. There is the opening statement, there is a second section that is usually deemed as a dogfight section, where you'll hear the higher winds and the lower winds playing their melodies based off of each other. One will come in and the other one will answer, kind of a call and response deal where they're in a conversation. And then we end the march with the trio. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the score for Amparita Roca, and we're going to go ahead and listen to it. And pull out the scores that you picked up on your way in, and as we go through this listening, I want you to go through and mark where you think each section is, where it starts, if you notice anything different with what you're hearing, and I want you to be able to identify where the key change is. So if we go ahead and look at my score, you'll notice that we do start right off in the 2/4, which is that duple time signature that we talked about. And this opening goes the whole way until this measure, where the rest of the ensemble comes in and kind of starts the main theme. That is our string 2. And then as we continue to listen, and listening to different melodies and counter melodies throughout the instruments, we eventually get to the trio section. And here we'll see the key signature change that we had talked about. Now, in the beginning, we definitely started in D minor, and then when we get to the trio, it went to D major, which means that it did modulate into its parallel major. Excuse me. And from the rest of the song here out, we will just recap what we have heard in the major key now. So now that we've listened to a concert band perform this, I thought it would be interesting if we watched a couple examples of a Paso Doble. So we're going to watch this version. These are two professional dancers doing it. You can see that most of their steps are within the beat. They're stepping on each beat, which is what is going to make it the two-step. Before we start, this is a Paso Doble to yet another Spanish composition, the Los Toreadors, which comes from the Carmen Suite. So this is one of those movements. Alrighty, so you can notice that the dancers are dressed elaborately and they're dressed in red, which would help represent the bullfight because a lot of times the matador has a red cape to attract the bull. And you could see that their movements were precisely in time. That song was in 4/4, which again is still that duple feel. And again, those were professional dancers, but typically these are performed throughout the community. So I have this example. And this is Amparita Roca with community members doing a Paso Doble to it. So as you can see, they are taking about 2 steps a measure, very metrical in their movements, and they do dance pretty close to each other. So that's all I have for you this class. Next class we will be going over flamenco dancing and that kind of music. So have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next class.